Progress isn't luck. It's a decision backed by structure. Every day feels the same when you're just getting by without a clear plan. You say you want more focus, more growth, more results, but without direction, effort gets wasted. This is where most people get stuck. They do a lot, but they don't move forward. Not because they can't, but because they haven't taken control of their path. This video is different. It's not for people who want motivation for a few minutes. It's for people who are ready to build a system that actually works. A system they can trust. No more guessing. No more hoping things will just work out. If you've been feeling stuck, distracted, or all over the place, this is your reset. This is where you build clarity step by step. Watch till the end. One shift in your thinking today can unlock consistent growth for the rest of your life. Chapter 1. Build a plan that strengthens your daily direction. When a person sits quietly for a moment and thinks about life, something honest rises to the surface. Every one of us wants to feel like our days move us forward. Every one of us wants to wake up with a sense of direction. But the truth is simple and often uncomfortable. Without a plan, nothing changes. Without a plan, the days slip by. Without a plan, progress becomes a hope instead of a reality. And people deserve more than hope. People deserve direction they can trust. A plan is not pressure. A plan is not stress. A plan is a choice to take control. When a person creates a plan, they tell their mind, I'm ready to move my life with purpose. They stop wandering through the day waiting for something to push them. They become the one who pushes. Human nature often waits for motivation first. But direction creates motivation. When the mind sees a clear path, it feels safer, stronger, more willing to act. And when the mind feels that way, progress becomes easier. Picture a day when you wake up already knowing what matters. You don't waste time thinking about where to start. You don't feel that heaviness that comes from trying to organize your life in your head. You know your direction. That is what a plan gives you. It gives you relief. It gives you clarity. It gives you a sense of control that strengthens your confidence. People underestimate how much confidence grows when life feels organized. Without that organization, the mind becomes scattered. And when the mind becomes scattered, progress slows. A plan also shapes how you talk to yourself. When you have direction, your inner voice becomes stronger. You stop telling yourself you will change someday. You stop promising yourself you will start later. You start living with action, and action changes everything. You start speaking to yourself in a way that builds trust. You start believing in your ability to follow through. Most people don't lack talent. They lack trust in themselves. A plan helps restore that trust because it gives you steps you can actually complete. And every completed step adds another piece to your confidence. A good plan also removes unnecessary stress. Think about how many people carry stress simply because they don't know what to do next. They feel overwhelmed not because the goal is too big, but because the path is unclear. When you sit down and create a simple plan for your day or your week, you lighten that weight. Your mind becomes calmer because it knows the next move. And a calm mind makes wiser decisions. It handles challenges better. It stays focused longer. That calmness is not luck. It comes from preparation. A plan also shapes your energy. When a person drifts through the day, their energy spreads thin. They jump from one thought to another. They chase the next thing that seems urgent. And at the end of the day, they wonder why they feel tired yet unfulfilled. But when a person has direction, energy gathers in one place. It becomes purposeful, and purposeful energy is powerful. It makes you feel alive. It gives you strength that you didn't know you had. That energy fuels progress in ways random effort never can. A plan also helps you respect your time. People say they want more time, yet they lose hours each day to distraction, confusion, and hesitation. When you create a plan, you learn to use your time more wisely. You stop wasting hours on things that do nothing for your growth. You stop giving your attention to things that weaken your spirit. You start using each hour with intention. And the moment you do that, something beautiful happens. You begin to feel proud of yourself. Pride grows from disciplined use of time. Pride grows from knowing you didn't waste your day. A plan also strengthens your discipline. Discipline is not about force. Discipline is about clarity. When you know what you need to do, it becomes easier to do it. The mind thrives on structure. When the structure is missing, discipline feels impossible. But when you outline your steps clearly, discipline feels natural. You stop fighting with yourself. You stop feeling guilty for starting late. You follow the direction you gave yourself. And with every day of discipline, your character becomes stronger. That strength spills into other parts of your life. It improves how you work. It improves how you think. It improves how you feel about your future. A plan also protects you from emotional swings. When life feels aimless, emotions take over. You wake up fine, but one small disruption ruins the whole day. You feel unsteady. But when you create direction, emotions have less control over you. You don't depend on your mood to move forward because you already know what needs to be done. And this gives you emotional stability, something many people search for but never realize comes from daily structure. A plan also helps you grow at a steady pace. Most people wait for a big moment to change their life, but real growth happens through small actions done consistently. A plan allows those small actions to stack day after day. You stop trying to fix everything at once. You break things down. You focus. And because you focus, progress becomes steady. Steady progress builds long-term change. It shapes your identity. It makes you become someone reliable, someone efficient, someone capable. There is also something meaningful that happens when you build a plan. You start paying attention to yourself. You start understanding what you truly want. You stop reacting to life and begin shaping it. You ask yourself honest questions. What matters to me? What am I ignoring? What do I need to change? These questions lead to clarity. And clarity is the foundation of a strong plan. A plan also reminds you that your life is your responsibility. Not your friends, not your family's, not society's, yours. When you create direction, you take ownership. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop thinking you need perfect conditions to begin. You begin because you understand that progress only belongs to those who take charge. A plan does not need to be complicated. It does not need fancy words or big ideas. It just needs honesty. What do you want? Why do you want it? What steps can you take today? That's enough to change the entire rhythm of your life. Because the moment you choose direction, you choose growth. And when a person chooses growth, their whole world starts to shift. Plan builds momentum. Momentum makes improvement easier. When you wake up with direction, you feel ready. Your day gains meaning. Your effort gains power. Your results gain consistency. And that consistency becomes a new identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, someone who creates progress, someone who shapes their life instead of waiting for life to shape them. A plan is the first act of self-respect. When you design the direction for your day, you tell yourself that your future matters. You tell yourself that you deserve progress. You tell yourself that your goals deserve attention. And when you live with that kind of inner respect, everything changes, your choices improve, your attitude improves, your confidence improves. This is why direction matters. This is why planning matters. Not for perfection, but for power. The power to guide your day, the power to build progress, the power to change the way you think and live. Build a plan that strengthens your daily direction. And life will open in ways you never expected. Chapter 2. Create actions that train your mind to focus. There comes a point in everyone's life when the mind feels crowded. Thoughts jump from one thing to another. Focus slips away easily. A person sits down to work on something important and suddenly remembers 10 other things. The mind becomes restless. And when the mind is restless, progress slows down. People often believe that focus is something that appears on its own. But it is not. Focus is trained. It grows stronger through repeated actions that guide the mind back to what matters. When a person chooses actions that strengthen focus, they begin to regain control of their thoughts and decisions. The mind listens to what you do more than what you say. Anyone can promise themselves that they will focus more. But the promise alone changes nothing. What changes the mind is action. Simple, clear, repeated action. When you choose one task and give it your full attention for a set amount of time, you train your mind to stay steady. The mind may wander. That is natural. But when you bring it back again and again, something powerful happens. You strengthen your ability to direct your thoughts. That repeated return builds mental discipline. The world today pulls people in many directions. Messages, notifications, conversations, and endless entertainment compete for attention. It becomes easy to lose your train of thought. To train your focus, you have to slow the world down. You have to create actions that center your mind. One of those actions is choosing one priority for the moment and sticking to it. Not 5 things, not 3 things, just one. When your mind learns to finish one thing before moving to the next, it stops chasing distractions. It grows calmer. It becomes sharper. This kind of clarity changes the way you experience your day. Focus improves when the mind is not overwhelmed. Many people try to do too much at once and then wonder why their thoughts feel scattered. The mind needs space to work well. One powerful action is to reduce the number of decisions you make at once. When you create small systems like setting aside specific times for certain tasks, you free your mind from unnecessary pressure. You teach your brain to concentrate because you remove the chaos that steals attention. This is not about controlling every minute. It is about giving your thoughts the room they need to settle. Another important action is to set boundaries around your attention. When you sit down to do something meaningful, your mind must know that this time is protected. No sudden scrolling, no switching between apps, no wandering to something easier. Every time you guard your focus, you give your mind strength. The more you protect your attention, the more your mind learns that your goals come first. Over time, this becomes a habit. Your brain becomes more loyal to your direction instead of chasing whatever noise appears around you. Your ability to focus also improves when you become aware of what pulls you away. Every person has certain triggers that break concentration. Some are emotional, some are physical, some are mental. When you pause and notice what interrupts your attention, you gain power over it. Maybe it is boredom. Maybe it is self-doubt. Maybe it is the desire to escape effort. When you identify it, you can respond with action instead of reaction. You can breathe. You can ground yourself. You can gently bring your attention back. This self-awareness trains your mind to remain steady even when distractions try to pull it away. Another action that trains focus is practicing being fully present. This means paying attention to what you are doing without rushing ahead in your thoughts. If you are writing, be with the writing. If you are learning, be with the learning. If you are having a conversation, be with the person in front of you. When you fully engage with one moment, your mind becomes sharper. You start noticing more details. You absorb information better. You become more connected to your actions. Presence builds mental strength because it reduces the noise inside your mind. The mind also responds well to repetition. When you repeat an action that requires concentration, the brain adapts. It becomes easier. It becomes natural. This is why daily habits matter. When you practice short periods of focused work each day, you train your mind the same way a person trains their body. You improve through consistency. Even 10 minutes of real focus each day will strengthen your mental capacity over time. The key is doing it regularly, not perfectly. Your brain grows from commitment, not intensity. Training your focus also means taking responsibility for how you spend your time. Every action you take either sharpens your mind or weakens it. When you choose activities that feed clarity, like reading, meaningful work, goal-driven tasks, you strengthen your mental direction. When you choose activities that numb your mind for too long, you weaken your ability to concentrate. The goal is not to remove enjoyment from your life. The goal is to balance it. You build a stronger mind when you choose actions that give you growth instead of actions that drain your strength. Your environment plays a role, too. A cluttered space often leads to a cluttered mind. Clearing your environment is an action that sends your brain a message. This is a place for focus. When your space supports your goals, your thoughts follow. The simple act of cleaning your desk, organizing your tools, or removing unnecessary items can improve your ability to concentrate. The mind works better in a space that feels calm and safe. Training your focus also requires understanding your limits. The brain has natural cycles of energy throughout the day. When you pay attention to when you feel most alert, you can schedule your important work during those moments. This action helps you use your mind more efficiently. Instead of fighting against low energy, you use the times when your mind is naturally stronger. This builds better results and reduces frustration. Another action that strengthens focus is practicing patience. People often give up on tasks too quickly. They lose interest the moment something feels difficult. But the mind becomes stronger when you stay with the task even when it becomes uncomfortable. When you push gently beyond boredom or frustration, you expand your mental stamina. You teach your mind that it can handle more than it thinks. This creates confidence and deeper concentration. Rest is part of training too. A tired mind cannot focus well. Taking small breaks, breathing deeply, or stepping away for a moment refreshes your thoughts. When you return, your focus is stronger. This is not laziness. This is maintenance. A well-rested mind performs better. Learning when to pause is just as important as learning when to push. The most powerful action you can take to train your focus is choosing to be intentional with your mind. When you approach your day with purpose, your thoughts follow your direction. You stop moving through life on autopilot. You start shaping your experiences. You start deciding where your attention goes instead of letting the world decide for you. Training focus is not about perfection. It is about progress. It is about choosing actions that bring your mind back to what matters. When you train your mind to focus, you gain freedom. You become more effective. You become more confident. You become more aware of your own strength. You begin to experience your life with clarity instead of confusion. Every action you take teaches your mind how to think. When you choose actions that build focus, you create a stronger, calmer, more directed version of yourself, and that version of you is capable of doing more than you ever imagined. Chapter 3. Define goals that push your personal growth. There comes a moment in a person's life when they realize they have been moving, but not necessarily moving in a direction that changes them. Days pass, tasks get done, responsibilities are handled, but something inside feels untouched. That feeling is a sign that growth needs a destination. Growth needs a target. Without a clear goal, a person may work hard but remain in the same place emotionally, mentally, and personally. A goal is not just something you want. It is something that demands a better version of you. It asks you to stretch your skills, your thinking, and your habits. When you define goals that push your personal growth, you make a decision to evolve rather than stay who you have always been. The first step is honesty. Real goals come from looking at your life without excuses. You ask yourself simple but powerful questions. What do I truly want to improve? What areas of my life feel unfinished? What part of me is capable of more but not being used? These questions create clarity. They bring your attention to places you may have ignored for years. When you answer them truthfully, you get a clear picture of the growth you need, not the growth others expect from you. A meaningful goal challenges you, not punishes you. It should not feel impossible, but it should feel like it requires effort beyond your current routine. When a goal is too easy, it keeps you comfortable. Comfort never builds progress. But when a goal pushes you gently out of familiar patterns, it forces you to upgrade your behavior. You learn new skills. You develop stronger habits. You become more aware of how you spend your time. The challenge of the goal becomes the tool that shapes your growth. To define the right goal, you must understand what kind of person you want to become. Growth is not just about achieving something. It is about transforming your character. A person who wants better health becomes someone who respects their body. A person who wants stronger relationships becomes someone who communicates clearly and openly. A person who wants financial improvement becomes someone who manages time and resources responsibly. Every goal reshapes the person pursuing it. When you choose goals that align with your desired identity, you build a version of yourself you can be proud of. A strong goal requires purpose. When you know why the goal matters, your effort becomes easier. Purpose gives energy to the difficult days. It gives meaning to the uncomfortable changes. Many people choose goals because they sound good or because others expect it, but those goals rarely create lasting growth. The goals that transform you are the ones that come from your heart. They come from your desire to improve your life in a way that truly matters to you. Once you connect with that reason, your goals become more than tasks. They become commitment. Another important part of defining growth-centered goals is choosing goals that create progress in different areas of your life. Growth is not one dimension. Personal growth includes emotional development, physical health, mindset improvement, relationship strength, confidence, discipline, and self-awareness. When you set goals that touch these areas, you grow in a balanced way. You start seeing your life through a wider lens. You stop focusing only on short-term achievements and begin valuing long-term growth. Your goals should be specific enough to guide you, but flexible enough to adjust. Life changes, circumstances shift. A rigid goal can become overwhelming when unexpected challenges appear. But a flexible goal adapts without losing its direction. It gives you room to change your approach while keeping your focus intact. This adaptability reduces frustration and encourages persistence. It teaches you to move forward even when the path is not perfect. To define goals that push your growth, you must also consider your weaknesses. Not to judge yourself, but to guide your improvement. Everyone has patterns that hold them back. Procrastination, fear, impatience, self-doubt, inconsistency. When you define goals that require you to face these weaknesses, you begin to grow from the inside out. You learn discipline. You learn courage. You learn responsibility. Growth comes from confronting the parts of yourself you have been avoiding. Your goals should also reflect your strength. Growth is not just fixing weaknesses. It is also developing what you are naturally good at. When you choose goals that use your strength, you build confidence. You move with more enthusiasm. You feel more connected to your strength-based goals keep you motivated and give you a sense of progress that fuels you forward. Another part of defining a strong growth goal is clarity. The mind cannot work towards something vague. Saying you want to be better or grow more gives you no direction. But defining specifically what area you want to grow in gives your mind something to focus on daily. If your goal is to communicate better, define what that means. If your goal is to build discipline, choose the action that shows discipline. If your goal is to improve your emotional balance, decide how you will practice it. Clarity gives your actions power. Growth-focused goals also require accountability. You must hold yourself responsible for the direction you choose. That does not mean blaming yourself when you struggle. It means staying aware of your progress, checking in with yourself, asking whether your actions match your goals. Accountability creates maturity. It teaches you to take charge of your life instead of waiting for someone else to push you. When defining your goal, consider the long-term effect. A good goal does not just improve your present. It upgrades your future. It builds habits that last. Teaches lessons you can use for years. It shapes a mindset that helps you face challenges with strength. When you choose goals with long-term value, you create growth that continues even after the goal is completed. Your goals must also inspire you. They should make you feel alive. They should make you feel like your life has direction. When a goal excites you, it becomes easier to commit. You look forward to working toward it. You feel proud of yourself when you take steps toward it. Inspiration fuels action. When that inspiration comes from a personal goal, you experience your life with more defining goals that push your growth also means being willing to step out of old stories. Many people limit themselves because they carry beliefs that no longer serve them. They think they are not capable enough, not strong enough, or not ready. But growth requires rewriting those beliefs. When you define a goal that challenges your old identity, you break those inner limits. You build a new belief system based on action and proof instead of fear. Growth-centered goals also teach patience. Real improvement takes time. When you decide to grow, you accept that the process may be slow but meaningful. You learn to appreciate progress instead of rushing to results. Patience gives you peace. It allows you to grow without pressure. And without pressure, your progress becomes more consistent. When you define goals that push your growth, you give your life direction, structure, and meaning. You stop living by chance and start living by choice. You stop drifting and start leading yourself. Goals are the roadmap of personal evolution. They guide you to who you can become. Your life changes the moment you choose a goal that demands your best. And when you rise to meet that demand, You grow into a stronger, wiser, more capable version of yourself, one decision at a time. Chapter 4. Start routines that support your emotional discipline. There comes a time when a person realizes that emotions influence almost everything they do. How they react, how they speak, how they treat themselves, and how they handle challenges all come from emotional discipline. Without it, even the strongest goals fall apart. Even the clearest plans get ignored. Even the best intentions fade. Emotional discipline is not about hiding your feelings. It is about guiding them in a way that helps your life instead of harming it. And one of the most effective ways to build this discipline is by creating routines that support your emotional stability every single day. A routine gives your emotions structure. When your day has structure, your feelings become easier to manage. You know what you are doing, why you are doing it, and when you are doing it. This removes unnecessary stress and keeps your emotions from becoming scattered. The moment you begin shaping your day, you begin shaping your inner world. The actions you repeat become signals to your mind, telling it how to respond, how to calm down, how to stay centered. Emotional strength grows when the mind feels anchored, and routines provide that anchor. Starting a routine begins with simple, steady actions. You do not need complicated rituals or overwhelming tasks. You need small behaviors that give your mind a sense of familiarity and control. Something as simple as taking a quiet minute before speaking to anyone can collect your thoughts. A short walk in the morning can help your emotions settle. Setting a time to review your intentions for the day creates clarity. These actions may feel small, but the emotional impact is significant because they teach your mind consistency. Emotional discipline improves when you reduce sudden chaos in your day. When everything feels unpredictable, your emotions react quickly and strongly. A routine helps lower that unpredictability. It gives you a rhythm that your mind can follow. When your mind knows what comes next, it becomes calmer. It stops jumping from worry to worry. It stops reacting to every small disturbance. Predictability may not solve every problem, but it gives your emotions enough order to respond to life with strength instead of panic. A routine also helps you notice emotional pattern. When your day is structured, you can see when certain feelings show up. You may notice you feel tense in the morning, restless in the afternoon, or discouraged at night. When you see these patterns clearly, you can take action before emotion turns into reaction. You can pause, adjust, breathe, or take a moment for yourself. This ability to intervene early is a key part of emotional discipline. You no longer get carried away by your emotions. You manage them with awareness. Discipline also grows from routines that protect your well-being. When you set time for rest, nourishment, movement, and reflection, you teach yourself that your emotional health is important. A tired mind becomes reactive. A neglected body becomes heavy. A rushed day creates frustration. But when you follow routines that care for you, your emotions remain more balanced. You think more clearly. You react more thoughtfully. You communicate more calmly. Self-care is not indulgence. It is maintenance. And maintenance is a form of discipline. Part of emotional discipline is learning to separate impulse from intention. Routines help you train this skill. When you commit to doing something daily, even when you do not feel like it, you teach yourself to act based on choice rather than emotion. This creates a strong inner voice that says, "I can follow through." That voice becomes your anchor when emotions push you toward impulsive decisions. Even small routines like finishing a simple task at the same time every day strengthen your ability to act with intention. Another routine that builds emotional discipline is setting aside time to reflect. Reflection is not overthinking. It is understanding. When you take a few minutes to think about how you acted, what triggered you, and how you could have responded differently, you grow emotionally wiser. Reflection builds emotional maturity. It helps you recognize the difference between temporary feelings and long-term values. When you know that difference, your discipline gets stronger because you stop letting emotions run your choices. Creating routines also helps you build emotional patience. Life will not always move at your pace. People will not always act the way you want. Plans will not always go smoothly. Without emotional discipline, this can create frustration that ruins your day. But when you follow routines that keep you grounded, you learn to pause instead of react. You learn to breathe before responding. You learn to think before speaking. This patience does not come from talent. It comes from repeated practice. Another important routine for emotional development is checking in with your thoughts throughout the day. Many people carry tension without noticing it. They hold stress in their shoulders. They tighten their jaw. They rush through their actions. When you pause for a moment, you allow your emotions to settle. This prevents the buildup that causes sudden emotional outbursts later. Regular check-ins remind you to stay aware. Awareness is the foundation of emotional control. A routine that many find helpful is ending the day with a moment of closure. When you finish your day intentionally, your emotions do not carry unnecessary weight into the next morning. You acknowledge what went well. You accept what did not. You release any tension you no longer need. This closing routine helps you approach the next day with a clear mind instead of leftover frustration. Emotional discipline improves when you do not carry old emotions into new moments. Emotional discipline also strengthens when you create routines that limit exposure to things that drain your stability. Setting boundaries around negative conversations, unnecessary arguments, or unhealthy distractions protects your emotional energy. When you routinely distance yourself from what disrupts your peace, you make room for emotional strength to grow. You do not have to engage with everything. You do not have to respond to every opinion. You have the right to protect your emotional. Another routine that supports emotional discipline is practicing neutral responses. Not everything requires a strong reaction. Sometimes the best response is a calm acknowledgement. When you make it a routine to respond with steadiness instead of intensity, you teach your emotions that they do not have to explode every time something unexpected happens. This kind of control is not cold or uncaring. It is maturity. It keeps your relationships healthier and your mind clearer. Daily routines also help you build trust in yourself. Emotional discipline grows when you believe you are capable of managing your inner world. Each day you follow your routine. You reinforce that belief. You prove to yourself that you can stay steady. You show yourself that you are responsible enough to handle your feelings. This trust creates emotional strength that cannot be taken away by circumstances or people. Starting routines that support emotional discipline is not about creating a perfect life. It is about creating a stable life, one where your emotions do not decide your future. A life where you respond with clarity instead of confusion. A life where you feel grounded even when things around you feel uncertain. A life where you guide your emotions with intention instead of letting them guide you without direction. When you build routines that strengthen your emotional discipline, you build a foundation for everything else. Your goals become easier. Your focus becomes sharper. Your relationships become healthier. Your confidence becomes stronger. Emotional discipline is not built in one day. It is built through repeated actions that teach your mind how to stay steady. And when your emotions work with you instead of against you, your entire life begins to move forward with purpose. Chapter 5. Choose habits that improve your internal clarity. There comes a point in every person's life when the noise inside feels louder than the world outside. Thoughts overlap, worries build up, and decisions become harder than they should be. That inner noise is a sign that clarity is missing. And clarity does not appear on its own. Clarity is created. It is built through habits that clean your mental space. Habits that teach your mind to slow down. Habits that help you understand what you truly think and feel. Internal clarity is not a luxury. It is a foundation for a stable and meaningful life. And the habits you choose each day determine how clear your inner world becomes. Internal clarity starts with the habit of paying attention to your thoughts instead of ignoring them. Many people push through their day without checking in with themselves. They carry stress, fears, and doubts without ever pausing to ask what those feelings are trying to say. When you make a habit of observing your thoughts, you begin to understand your emotional patterns. You recognize what triggers your frustration, what fuels your confidence, and what drains your energy. That awareness is the first step toward clarity because it helps you separate real concerns from imagined ones. Another habit that improves clarity is simplifying your mental load. The mind can only handle so many unfinished tasks before it becomes overwhelmed. When you reduce unnecessary commitments and remove distractions, your thoughts become easier to manage. A simple habit like writing down your tasks each morning clears space in your mind. You no longer rely on memory to handle everything. You give your brain room to think clearly. Simplicity does not weaken your ambition. It strengthens your efficiency and improves your emotional balance. Clarity also grows from the habit of reflection. Reflection allows you to look at your choices, your actions, and your reactions with honesty. Taking a few minutes to think about your day helps you understand what moved you forward and what held you back. You begin to see patterns you never noticed before. You understand yourself better without judgment. Reflection gives you insight. Insight gives you direction. When you understand your behavior, you make wiser decisions in the future. Another powerful habit for internal clarity is creating moments of quiet. Many people surround themselves with constant noise because silence feels unfamiliar. But silence is where clarity grows. A quiet moment in the morning, a slow breath before a conversation, or a short pause before reacting allows your mind to reset. These small breaks help your thoughts settle. When your mind is calm, your decisions become clearer. The habit of quiet time does not require long hours. It requires consistency. Clarity improves when you practice being fully present. When you give your full attention to the moment you are in, your mind stops drifting into worry. Being present sharpens your awareness. You notice details you would normally miss. You connect more deeply with the task in front of you. And when you experience the moment with full attention, your thoughts become organized. Presence reduces confusion because it prevents your mind from jumping ahead. Keeps you grounded. Another habit that supports clarity is reducing emotional clutter. Emotional clutter comes from holding too many unresolved feelings. When you take the time to acknowledge and express what you feel, your emotions stop piling up. You begin to understand what needs healing, what needs changing, and what needs letting go. This emotional openness shapes a clearer mind because you are no longer carrying hidden weight. Clearing emotional clutter is an ongoing habit, not a one-time action. Your physical environment affects your inner clarity. 2. A consistent habit of keeping your space clean and organized helps your mind stay orderly. When you remove physical mess, you reduce mental stress. Your surroundings influence your mood, your focus, and your emotional stability. A tidy space supports a tidy mind. It becomes easier to think clearly when you are not surrounded by chaos. Sleep is another habit linked to clarity. A tired mind cannot think logically. It becomes reactive, distracted, and clouded. When you prioritize rest, you give your brain the recovery it needs. Good sleep improves memory, focus, and emotional strength. Internal clarity becomes more natural when your mind is not fighting exhaustion. A well-rested mind sees things as they are instead of magnifying problems. Clarity also develops through healthy boundaries. When you make it a habit to protect your time, your energy, and your emotional space, you stop allowing unnecessary stress into your life. Boundaries help you avoid situations that confuse your priorities or weaken your sense of self. When you learn to say no to what drains you, you create space for what strengthens you. Boundaries create clarity by reducing chaos. Another habit that strengthens internal clarity is mindful communication. When you take time to express your thoughts clearly and listen carefully to others, misunderstandings decrease. Your relationships become healthier and less emotionally draining. Clear communication reduces hidden tension, which often clouds the mind. Being honest and direct keeps your emotional energy clean and focused. A habit that many overlook is intentional learning. When you feed your mind with meaningful information, your understanding grows. Learning exposes you to new perspectives. It sharpens your thinking. It helps you see solutions you never considered before. Learning is not about collecting facts. It is about improving your mental ability to interpret life with clarity. Internal clarity also comes from the habit of grounding yourself in gratitude. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present. It calms unnecessary worry. It reduces emotional pressure. When you make gratitude a daily habit, your mind becomes clearer because you stop viewing life through negativity. You see possibilities instead of problems. This emotional stability supports better clarity in your decisions and action. Another important habit is choosing routines that promote mental stability. When your day follows a steady rhythm, your mind feels safe. Safety gives room for clarity to grow. A predictable routine prevents your emotions from controlling your action. It helps you stay organized and reduces mental clutter. Routine is not about restriction. It is about direction. Clarity also grows when you make it a habit to focus on what you can control. Many people lose clarity because they spend too much mental energy worrying about things outside their influence. When you train yourself to concentrate on actions you can take, your mind becomes sharper. You stop wasting energy on what cannot be changed. This shift brings clarity, confidence, and emotional strength. Developing internal clarity means choosing habits that help you understand yourself more deeply. It means creating daily patterns that support your mental balance. It means removing behaviors that cloud your judgment. These habits take time to develop, but each one adds another layer of clarity to your life. And with clarity comes peace. With clarity comes better choices. With clarity comes a stronger sense of direction. When you choose habits that improve your internal clarity, you choose to live with intention. You choose to think with purpose. You choose to act with confidence. Clarity is not something you find. It is something you build. And when you build it, your entire life becomes easier to navigate. The path becomes more visible. The decisions become more grounded. And the person you become is someone who moves through life with understanding and strength. Chapter 6. Take steps that build trust in yourself. Every person reaches a point where they realize that trust in themselves is the foundation of every meaningful change. You can have goals, routines, plans, and ideas. But without trust in your own actions, nothing moves. Trust is not something you talk yourself into. It is something you build through small, consistent steps that show your mind you are someone worth believing in. When you take steps that strengthen this trust, you begin to rely on your own choices, your own discipline, and your own direction. And this kind of trust becomes one of the greatest forms of personal power a person can ever develop. Trust starts with showing up for yourself in simple ways. Many people live with self-doubt not because they failed but because they repeatedly broke promises they made to themselves. Every time you say you will do something and you ignore it, your mind remembers. Every time you delay what matters, your confidence slowly dissolves. But the moment you take even one small step toward what you said you would do, your mind recognizes it. That recognition builds strength. Trust grows through action, not intention. A powerful way to build trust is to follow through on tasks that seem small. Something as simple as finishing a morning task you planned or completing a responsibility you usually avoid can have a strong impact on your confidence. When you prove to yourself that you can do the little things, you begin to believe you can handle bigger challenges. People often underestimate how much their identity is shaped by these small actions. Each completed step tells you that you are capable. Each moment of follow-through whispers that you can depend on yourself. Trust also grows when you face discomfort instead of escaping it. Many people run from difficult tasks because they fear failing, but avoiding difficulty weakens try. It sends a message to your mind that you cannot handle pressure. Taking steps towards something uncomfortable, even in small amounts, builds a deeper sense of capability. You show yourself that you do not need perfect conditions to act. You show yourself that you can handle a challenge without collapsing. This quiet courage builds trust far more than any motivational thought ever could. Another important step is honoring your boundaries. When you protect your time and energy, you tell yourself that your well-being matters. This is not selfishness. It is leadership over your own life. When you let people or situations constantly push you beyond your limits, you weaken your inner trust because you become someone who abandons themselves to please others. But when you stay firm, when you honor what you need, your self-respect grows. Self-respect strengthens trust because you learn that you will not betray yourself for comfort or approval. Trust is also built when you keep your word even when no one is watching. Private victories shape personal power. When you complete a task without needing praise, when you stay disciplined without anyone checking on you, when you keep a promise you made quietly to yourself, your character deepens. These private wins become the foundation of your self-belief. You begin to see yourself as someone reliable, someone capable, someone strong. Trust grows in the silence long before it shows up in public. Another step that builds trust is admitting your mistakes with honesty instead of hiding them. People often break trust with themselves because they refuse to face where they went wrong. When you avoid responsibility, your mind sees that avoidance. But when you acknowledge your mistake and correct your behavior, you build integrity. You show yourself that you are willing to learn instead of deny. This creates emotional maturity. It allows you to move forward with clarity instead of carrying shame. Mistakes do not destroy trust. Refusing to learn from them does. A meaningful step in building trust is being consistent with the effort you offer yourself. Many people give up too early because they expect instant results. But trust grows from consistency. When you show up day after day, even when progress is slow, you build a relationship with yourself based on persistence. You prove that you do not quit when life becomes steady and quiet. This consistency teaches your mind that you can be counted on even without external excitement. Another step that strengthens trust is choosing actions that match your values. When you behave in a way that aligns with what you truly believe, you create inner harmony. But when you act against your own values, your mind becomes conflicted and trust weakens. Taking steps that reflect your principles gives you a sense of congruence. You feel grounded in who you are. You stop feeling like you are betraying yourself. This alignment builds inner strength because your actions and beliefs walk in the same direction. Trust also grows when you celebrate your progress. Too many people dismiss their own efforts as not enough. They look at what they still have to do instead of recognizing what they have already done. When you refuse to acknowledge your progress, you convince yourself that your effort has no value. But when you take a moment to appreciate each improvement, no matter how small, you reinforce your confidence. Your mind begins to associate effort with reward, not disappointment. This motivates you to keep going. Another step in building trust is giving yourself permission to move at your own pace. Comparison destroys trust. When you measure your life against someone else's timeline, you create self-doubt. But when you honor your pace, you build confidence in your ability to grow steadily. You stop rushing. You stop judging yourself unfairly. You develop patience with your journey. And patience creates emotional safety, which supports deeper trust in yourself. Trust also deepens when you take responsibility for shaping your life. When you blame circumstances, people, or the past, you give away your power. But when you take ownership of your direction, you gain control. Ownership builds trust because you recognize that your choices matter. You stop waiting for someone else to fix things. You stop depending on luck or chance. You begin relying on your own decisions. This shift reinforces your belief that you can guide your life with intention. Another step that builds trust is practicing discipline in areas that matter to your long-term growth. Discipline is not punishment. It is guidance. When you discipline yourself to follow routines, manage your time, and protect your priorities, you create stability. Stability strengthens trust because you no longer feel lost or uncertain. You begin to feel grounded in your ability to shape your day. Trust also grows when you keep learning. When you study new skills, improve your knowledge, and stretch your thinking, you expand your potential. Learning deepens your confidence because you see yourself developing. You prove that you are willing to grow instead of staying stuck. Growth builds trust because you no longer fear change. You become someone who embraces. Every step you take to strengthen trust in yourself shapes your identity. It turns you into someone who believes in their own strength, someone who follows through, someone who can depend on their own actions. Trust is built one decision at a time, and when you build it with intention, you create a version of yourself that stands firm, moves forward with confidence, and faces life with a sense of inner certainty that nothing can easily shake. Chapter 7. Track progress that shows your real effort. There comes a stage in personal growth when you realize that effort alone is not enough. You can work hard, try your best, and stay committed. But without tracking your progress, your mind never sees the evidence of your effort. And when the mind cannot see evidence, motivation weakens. Progress becomes hard to recognize. Doubt grows. That doubt does not come from lack of ability. It comes from lack of clarity. When you track your progress in a simple and honest way, you give yourself proof that you are moving forward. That proof builds confidence. It strengthens your desire to continue. It shows you that your effort is real, meaningful, and alive. Tracking your progress begins with acknowledging the truth about your actions. Many people underestimate what they have done because they rely on memory alone. Memory is emotional. It focuses on what you missed, what you struggled with, or what you wished you did better. When you track your progress on paper or through a simple system, you remove emotion and see the facts. You see the steps you actually took, not the steps you think you took. This creates a more grounded and fair perspective on your journey. A major benefit of tracking progress is that it breaks your goals into visible milestones. When everything is kept inside your head, your goals feel distant. They seem far away and unclear. But when you record your actions daily or weekly, your progress becomes something you can measure. Each mark, note, or log becomes a reminder that you are working towards something meaningful. This structure helps you maintain direction, keeps you aware of the path ahead instead of drifting without focus. Tracking progress also reveals habits you never noticed before. When you look at what you have done over time, you begin to see patterns. Maybe you take more action on certain days. Maybe you avoid certain tasks repeatedly. Maybe you improve faster when you follow a particular routine. These insights help you understand how you naturally operate. Once you understand these patterns, you can make better decisions. You can adjust your approach without guessing. You become more strategic with your effort. Another powerful reason to track progress is that it strengthens discipline. When you record your actions, you create accountability. You can no longer hide behind excuses because the truth is written down. This accountability pushes you to be more consistent. It encourages you to show up even when you do not feel like it. Knowing that you will record your effort creates a gentle pressure that leads to better habits. You learn to build discipline from the inside instead of waiting for external motivation. Tracking progress also helps you celebrate accomplishments you used to ignore. Many people move from one task to another without acknowledging what they achieved. This creates a sense of emptiness even when they are trying hard. When you track your progress, you give yourself credit for your effort. You see how far you have come. You notice improvements in your behavior, mindset, and routine. These small victories build momentum. They give you energy to continue when life becomes tiring. Another important effect of tracking progress is that it reduces overwhelm. When a goal feels too big, the mind becomes stressed. But when you break it down into daily steps and track each step, the goal feels more manageable. Each completed action removes pressure. You stop worrying about the size of the journey and focus on the step in front of you. Overwhelm turns into clarity. Clarity turns into consistent effort. And consistent effort leads to real growth. Tracking progress also teaches you to be honest with yourself. When you write down what you did and didn't do, you face your behavior directly. You cannot hide behind distractions or excuses. This honesty creates maturity. It teaches you to adjust instead of justify. It helps you see what is working and what is not. That level of self-awareness leads to better choices and faster improvement. Another reason progress tracking matters is that it strengthens your relationship with time. When you track your effort, you start to see how you spend your hours and day. You understand which activities help your growth and which ones steal your attention. This awareness helps you use your time more wisely. You stop wasting hours on things that weaken your progress. You start building days that support your purpose. Time becomes a tool rather than something that slips away unnoticed. Tracking progress also helps you stay committed long enough to see results. Many people quit because they think they are not improving. But improvement happens gradually. When you track your actions, you can see progress even when it feels slow. You can look back and realize you are not the same person you were before. This realization strengthens your endurance. It gives you proof that your effort is paying off, and this proof keeps you committed through the quiet seasons where progress is easy to overlook. Another benefit is that tracking progress helps you correct mistakes faster. When you notice a pattern where your effort drops, you can make changes before those habits damage your momentum. You can adjust your routine, shift your approach, or seek support. Tracking helps you intervene early instead of waiting for things to get worse. This kind of early correction protects your growth and keeps you moving in the right direction. Tracking progress also builds emotional stability. When your mind can see the steps you took, it feels grounded. It becomes less reactive. It becomes more patient. You stop expecting perfection and start appreciating progress. Emotional discipline improves naturally because you realize that growth is not a single event but a continuous path. The more you track, the more secure you feel about your direction. Another important part of tracking progress is learning to be fair with yourself. The purpose is not to judge yourself harshly. The purpose is to understand your journey. Some days will be strong, some days will be slow. But every day you stay aware of your actions becomes a day that contributes to your growth. Fairness builds self-respect. Self-respect builds trust, and trust strengthens your commitment to your goals. Tracking progress also teaches you patience. When you look at your improvement over time, you understand that growth is steady, not instant. You learn to appreciate long-term development. You become more willing to stay consistent because you see that results come from accumulation, not speed. Patience helps you avoid frustration. It helps you stay focused. It helps you keep going even when change feels small. When you track your progress, you also shape a stronger identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You start seeing yourself as someone who grows. Your self-image becomes aligned with your action. This shift in identity is powerful because people always act according to who they believe they are. If you believe you are committed, you act with commitment. If you believe you are capable, you handle challenges with confidence. Tracking progress strengthens this identity. Every step you record becomes a message to your future self. Tells you that you stayed in the game. Tells you that you chose to grow. It tells you that you kept moving even when no one was watching. And these messages build strength you can rely on. Tracking your progress is not a small habit. It is a life-changing practice. It shows you the truth. It guides your decisions. It reinforces your effort. And it reminds you that every action counts. When you track progress that shows your real effort, you create a foundation for growth that is steady, honest, and deeply empowering. Chapter 8. Correct behaviors that block your daily progress. Every person at some point becomes aware that progress is not only built by new habits, new goals, or new routines. Progress also depends on removing the behaviors that quietly hold you back. These behaviors may look harmless on the surface. Some of them even feel comfortable because they are familiar, but familiar does not mean helpful. If a behavior weakens your direction, disrupts your focus, or drains your responsibility, it becomes a barrier to your growth. And until you correct these behaviors, your daily progress will remain slower than it needs to be. Real progress requires courage. And one of the most powerful forms of courage is the willingness to correct yourself. The first step in correcting unhelpful behavior is awareness. Many people repeat the same patterns because they are not paying attention. They go through the day on autopilot, repeating habits that feel normal but create frustration later. When you start paying attention to what you do, not what you intend, not what you hope, but what you actually do, you begin to see the behaviors that interrupt your progress. Awareness gives you clarity, and clarity gives you the power to change. One of the most common behaviors that blocks progress is avoidance. Avoidance shows up in small ways. Delaying a task, ignoring a responsibility, pushing aside a difficult decision. Avoidance feels comfortable in the moment because it gives temporary relief, but it creates long-term stress. The mind knows what you are avoiding, and that uncompleted task keeps returning to your thoughts, draining your energy throughout the day. Correcting avoidance means facing tasks directly, even if you take only a small step. When you act instead of postpone, your confidence grows and your mind becomes lighter. Another behavior that slows progress is overthinking. Many people spend more time thinking about what they need to do than actually doing it. Overthinking creates doubt. It exaggerates fear. It convinces you that you need more time, more preparation, or more certainty before you can take action. But growth does not require perfect answers. It requires movement. Correcting overthinking means setting limits on how long you analyze a situation and choosing to move forward once you understand the essentials. When you take action, your mind becomes clearer because action reduces fear. A behavior that often goes unnoticed is self-criticism. People speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they care about. They judge themselves harshly for small mistakes. They treat their efforts as meaningless. This behavior destroys motivation. It weakens your emotional stability. Progress becomes nearly impossible when your inner voice does not support you. Correcting this behavior means practicing fairness. You do not need false praise. You need balanced truth. You can acknowledge your mistakes without attacking yourself. When your inner voice becomes kinder and more reasonable, your progress becomes smoother. Another behavior that blocks daily progress is inconsistency. Starting strong and then disappearing, promising yourself improvement and then letting it fade. Inconsistency confuses the mind. It creates an identity of unpredictability. You begin to see yourself as someone who cannot rely on their own commitment. Correcting inconsistency means reducing the size of your tasks and increasing the regularity of your action. It is not about doing everything at once. It is about doing something every day. Consistency builds stability and stability builds progress. Another behavior that slows growth is saying yes to everything. When you accept every request, every invitation, and every responsibility that others place on you, you lose control of your time. You cannot focus deeply because your energy is scattered. Progress requires attention and attention requires boundary. Correcting this behavior means learning to say no with confidence. You protect your goals by choosing where your energy goes. Your time becomes purposeful instead of reactive. A behavior that often blocks daily progress is impatience. People want fast outcomes. They want instant change. When results do not appear quickly, they lose interest or get frustrated. Impatience leads to quitting early. It stops you from seeing the benefits that come from long-term effort. Correcting impatience means reminding yourself that progress is built quietly. You do not need to feel dramatic change every day. You only need to move forward. When you accept the nature of gradual improvement, you stay committed long enough to see results. Another behavior that holds people back is comparing themselves to others. Comparison steals your focus. It distracts you from your own path. It creates envy, insecurity, and self-doubt. Your progress becomes invisible because you measure it against someone else's timeline. Correcting comparison means directing your attention inward. Your journey is yours. Your progress is meaningful even if no one else sees it. When you stop comparing, you gain freedom to grow at your natural pace. Procrastination is another daily barrier. Procrastination makes tasks feel heavier than they actually are. The more you delay, the more your mind resists. This behavior drains mental energy even when you are not doing anything. Correcting procrastination means breaking tasks into small steps and beginning immediately. Starting creates momentum. Once you start, the task becomes easy. Your mind relaxes because the burden is no longer sitting untouched. Another behavior that blocks progress is overloading your schedule. Some people believe that being busy means they are being productive. But busyness without direction is just movement without progress. Correcting this behavior means simplifying your commitments. Focus on fewer tasks but execute them with depth and intention. When you stop chasing everything, you make room for the things that truly matter. Another behavior that slows improvement is expecting perfection from yourself. Perfectionism creates pressure. It discourages you from beginning because you fear not doing things flawlessly. It makes every mistake feel larger than it is. Correcting perfectionism means valuing completion over flawlessness. Progress comes from improvement, not perfection. When you allow yourself to be human, your momentum increases. A behavior that deeply affects progress is ignoring your emotional needs. If your mental and emotional state is neglected, your productivity declines. Your motivation decreases. Your discipline weakens. Correcting this behavior means taking care of your emotional health. You acknowledge your feelings. You give yourself rest when needed. You express your thoughts instead of suppressing them. When your emotions are stable, progress becomes easy. Another behavior that limits progress is failing to evaluate your day. People often repeat mistakes simply because they never take the time to reflect. When you end the day without review, you carry the same behavior into tomorrow. Correcting this means taking a moment to look at what worked and what did not. When you observe your actions, you understand what to correct. Reflection shapes better days. Another behavior that blocks progress is lack of preparation. When you start your day without clarity, you waste time trying to figure out what to do next. This creates confusion and reduces your effectiveness. Correcting this behavior means preparing in advance. When you start with direction, your progress becomes smooth. Correcting behaviors that block progress is not about punishing yourself. It is about freeing yourself. It is about freeing yourself. It is about removing unnecessary weight so you can move faster, think clearer, and grow consistently. Once you identify and correct these daily behaviors, your progress becomes more natural. Your days feel lighter, your confidence grows, and you begin moving forward with purpose instead of frustration. Growth does not only come from what you add to your life. It also comes from what you remove. When you correct the behaviors that block your daily progress, you open the path for real change. Steady, strong, and completely within your control. Chapter 9. Strengthen choices that align with your values. Every person reaches a point where they realize that real progress does not come from random decisions or temporary motivation. It comes from choices that match who they truly are. Choices aligned with personal values create stability, direction, and confidence. When your decisions reflect your values, your life feels meaningful. When they do not, you feel disconnected from yourself. Strengthening your choices means becoming clear about the principles you want to live by and committing to them even when it is inconvenient. Values are not decorations. They are guides that shape the path you walk each day. When you honor them, your choices become stronger, cleaner, and more powerful. The first step in strengthening choices is understanding what your values are. Many people never take the time to define what matters to them. They drift through life following habits they learned from family, society, or past experiences without asking if those patterns match their true self. Values are personal. They come from your beliefs, your priorities, and your sense of purpose. When you identify them honestly, your decisions start to make sense. You stop living by accident and start living with awareness. Once you know your values, the next step is bringing them into your daily decisions. It is easy to talk about values, but it takes discipline to act on them. If you value honesty, you choose honesty even when it is uncomfortable. If you value growth, you choose actions that demand effort. If you value respect, you treat people with fairness, even when emotions run high. Strengthening choices means using your values as the standard, not your mood or convenience. This consistency builds personal integrity. One of the strongest benefits of making value-aligned choices is that they reduce inner conflict. When your decisions go against your values, your mind feels unsettled. You carry a sense of discomfort that you cannot fully explain. But when your choices match your beliefs, your mind feels clear. You no longer argue with yourself internally. You move through your day with a sense of calm because you know you acted according to your own principles, not pressure or impulse. Strengthening choices also requires learning to slow down before making decisions. Quick decisions are often emotional decisions. When you pause for a moment and ask yourself whether a choice supports your values, you create space for clarity. This pause gives your mind time to evaluate instead of react. You begin choosing actions that serve your future instead of your temporary feeling. This simple habit of slowing down can transform the quality of your decisions. Another important step is recognizing the difference between personal values and external expectations. Many people feel torn between what they believe and what others want from them. When you act based on external pressure, you sacrifice your authenticity. But when you act based on your values, you strengthen your sense of identity. Strengthening choices means having the courage to prioritize your principles even when others disagree. It means staying true to your path without apologizing for it. Strengthening value-aligned choices also helps you set clearer boundaries. When you know what you stand for, you know what you will not tolerate. You are no longer easily influenced by guilt, fear, or persuasion. You understand which situations support your well-being and which ones drain your energy. Boundaries become easier to set because they are not based on emotion. They are based on principles. And when boundaries come from principles, they feel firm, fair, and necessary. Another dimension of strengthening choices is learning to let go of behaviors that contradict your values. If you value discipline, but your choices reflect procrastination, you feel disconnected. If you value honesty, but you avoid difficult truths, you weaken your own trust. Letting go of contradictory behaviors is not a punishment. It is alignment. It is the process of becoming the person you want to be instead of staying attached to actions you know are harmful. Strengthening choices also teaches you responsibility. When your decisions reflect your values, you stop blaming circumstances for your outcomes. You take ownership. You understand that your life is shaped by the choices you make. This responsibility empowers you. It gives you control over your direction. You no longer wait for luck or perfect conditions. You rely on your principles to guide you through challenges and opportunities. Another meaningful benefit of aligning your choices with your values is that your relationships improve. When you show up with consistency, honesty, and integrity, people trust you more. They can predict the kind of person you are because your actions do not shift based on convenience. You become reliable. You become steady. You become someone whose presence brings clarity instead of confusion. Value-driven choices strengthen your character, and people naturally respect those who live with character. Strengthening choices is not only about big decisions. It is about the small daily choices that build your habit. Values show up when you decide how to use your time, how to speak to others, how to treat yourself, how to handle responsibilities, and how to respond to challenges. Every small decision either strengthens or weakens your alignment. When you repeatedly choose actions that support your values, you build a life that reflects your true self. This consistency creates emotional stability. A significant part of strengthening choices is recognizing when you have drifted away from your value. No one stays aligned perfectly. Everyday life gets busy. Emotions get heavy. Distractions pull you off course. The important part is noticing when your behavior no longer reflects your principles. When you notice it, you can correct it. This ability to realign yourself is a sign of emotional maturity. It shows that you are committed to your growth, not to perfection. Strengthening choices also deepens self-trust. When you repeatedly act according to your values, you prove to yourself that you can depend on your decision. You begin to trust your judgment. You rely on your own standards. This inner trust is powerful because it protects you from doubt, manipulation, and confusion. A person who trusts themselves becomes harder to break, harder to influence, and harder to discourage. Their strength comes from within. Another benefit is that value-aligned choices create long-term clarity. When you know what matters to you, your goals become clearer. Your decisions about work, relationships, and personal growth become easier. You stop wasting time on things that contradict your principle. You direct your energy toward what supports your future. This clarity saves you from unnecessary struggle and emotional exhaustion. Strengthening choices that align with your values also transforms how you feel about your life. When your actions match your beliefs, you feel peaceful. You feel confident. You feel proud of the person you are becoming. That pride is not ego. It is fulfillment. It comes from knowing that you are not abandoning yourself. It comes from living in a way that honors your identity. Living according to your values does not happen by accident. It happens through conscious decisions repeated daily. It happens through moments of honesty, courage, and self-respect. When you strengthen the choices that align with your values, you build a life that reflects the best in you. You build a foundation of character that supports your progress, and you create a sense of direction that guides you through every challenge with strength and clarity. Chapter 10. Protect habits that keep your growth consistent. Every person who wants to grow reaches a moment when they realize that improvement is not created by rare moments of motivation but by the steady habits they protect every single day. Growth does not happen in a burst of excitement. Growth is built in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Growth comes from the small behaviors that shape your direction, strengthen your discipline, and build your identity. But these habits are fragile. They can be weakened by distraction, pressure, excuses, or emotional discomfort. That is why protecting the habits that support your growth is one of the most important responsibilities you have toward your own future. When you protect your habits, you protect the parts of your life that keep you stable. A habit is a signal to your mind. Tells you who you are becoming. Tells you what matters. Tells you how to behave, even when your emotions shift. But when you neglect these habits, your foundation weakens. You begin to slip back into old patterns. You lose direction without even realizing it. Protecting your habits means guarding your progress like something valuable. Because it is valuable. It is the structure that keeps your growth moving forward. The first step in protecting your habits is recognizing their importance. Many people underestimate small habits because they seem simple, but simplicity does not make them weak. The habit of writing down tasks, reflecting at night, controlling your time, or taking care of your health may seem small, but each one affects your clarity and consistency. When you recognize how much these habits shape your mind, you begin to treat them with more respect. You stop skipping them casually. You stop treating them as optional. You begin seeing them as the engine of your progress. Protecting habits also requires creating an environment that supports them. Your environment influences your behavior more than you think. A cluttered space disrupts your routine. A distracting environment weakens your focus. People around you can either encourage your habits or tempt you away from them. Protecting your habits means building surroundings that make it easier to follow through. This might mean preparing your space the night before, organizing your tools, setting reminders, or limiting contact with people who drain your energy. When your environment supports your habits, consistency becomes natural. Another important part of protecting habits is removing the temptation to break them. Everyone faces moments when they feel tired, stressed, or unmotivated. In those moments, the mind looks for the easiest option, even if it harms long-term growth. Protecting your habits means reducing the chances of abandoning them. You can make this easier by lowering the difficulty of starting. Prepare your materials in advance. Keep your tasks simple. Reduce the friction between you and the habit. When the first step is easy, your mind is more willing to continue. Protecting habits also means refusing to negotiate with excuses. Excuses are attractive because they offer comfort. They convince you that skipping your habit just once won't hurt, but once leads to twice and twice leads to a pattern. When you protect your habits, you learn to recognize excuses quickly. You learn to separate legitimate rest from unnecessary avoidance. You develop the emotional strength to act even when you do not feel like it. This strengthens your character and builds self-respect. Another essential part of protecting habits is understanding that consistency does not require perfection. Many people abandon their habits because they expect flawless performance. They miss one day and immediately feel discouraged. But growth is not destroyed by one missed moment. It is destroyed by quitting altogether. When you protect your habits, you allow yourself to make mistakes without giving up. You acknowledge the day you missed and then you return the next day with commitment. This resilience creates sustainable growth. Protecting habits also means adjusting them when your life changes. Your seasons of life will shift. Your schedule, energy levels, responsibilities, and challenges will evolve. A rigid habit breaks easily under pressure. A flexible habit adapts without losing its direction. When you adjust your habits to fit your new circumstances, you protect your progress from being disrupted. You learn to move with life while still honoring your commitment to grow. Another part of protecting habits is limiting unnecessary commitments. The more overwhelmed you are, the easier it becomes to break your routine. When you fill your life with too many tasks, even important habits get pushed aside. Protecting habits means making room for them. It means choosing what truly matters and letting go of distractions that do not add to your growth. This discipline helps you stay consistent and focused. Protecting habits also requires emotional awareness. Your habits are affected by how you feel. Stress, frustration, and confusion can weaken your discipline. When you ignore your emotional state, your habits become harder to maintain. But when you acknowledge your emotions, you can support yourself through them. You can adjust your pace, take a breath, or give yourself a small moment to reset. Emotional awareness helps you maintain consistency without burnout. Another powerful part of protecting habits is using accountability. When you track your progress or share your goals with someone you trust, you strengthen your commitment. Accountability helps you stay aware of your habits and recognize when you begin to slip. It encourages you to keep going even when motivation fades. The goal is not to depend on others, but to use every tool possible to support your growth. Protecting habits also builds identity. Every time you follow through on your habits, you reinforce the belief that you are consistent, reliable, and committed. Identity shapes behavior. When you see yourself as someone who keeps their habits, you naturally continue them. When you protect your habits, you protect this identity. It becomes easier to make decisions that support your growth because you no longer see your habits as tasks. You see them as part of who you are. One of the most important reasons to protect your habits is that they create momentum. Even the smallest habit repeated daily creates movement, and movement turns into progress. Progress builds confidence. Confidence strengthens discipline. Discipline leads to deeper growth. This chain reaction begins with the habits you protect. When your habits stay intact, your progress stays alive. Protecting habits also teaches you responsibility. Growth does not happen by accident. It happens by consistent effort. When you protect your habits, you accept responsibility for your future. You no longer depend on motivation or inspiration to keep you moving. You learn to rely on your own structure. This responsibility gives you control over your direction. It helps you build a life that reflects intention instead of impulse. Another benefit of protecting habits is the peace it brings. When your habits are steady, your mind feels steady. You wake up knowing what you need to do. You end your day knowing you contributed to your growth. This stability reduces anxiety and stress. It gives you confidence that your future is being built daily. When your habits are stable, your emotions become calmer. Your decisions become clearer and your life feels more balanced. Protecting habits is not about perfection. It is about loyalty to your own growth. It is about making choices that support the person you want to become. It is about defending your progress from distraction, doubt, and inconsistency. When you protect your habits, you protect your future. You protect your strength. You protect your identity, and you give yourself the chance to grow in a way that is steady, real, and long-lasting. Growth belongs to the person who is consistent, not the person who is occasionally motivated. And when you protect the habits that keep your growth alive, you become unstoppable in your journey forward.